"I understand," he murmured as he looked at the surrounding houses with a critical eye. Ahren was just about to ask the dwarf what he was thinking when a loud scream caused him to spin around. They had managed to remain unnoticed up to this point in the cold winter morning, but now the baker had spotted them through his shutters, and he was shouting the village down. They managed to make it to the village square with its mighty oak, its brick forge, which had been built since Ahren's departure, and the little chapel of the Three, where Ahren's journey had begun. But now the villagers of Deepstone were hurriedly flocking together, and they soon were surrounded by a crowd that was both fearful and exuberant. Fulk had deliberately left Celsina back in the eastern forest, as her appearance might have been too much for the villagers. Even so, the sight of an elf and a dwarf was a sensation in the sleepy little village. The familiar faces of Fulk and Ahren, however, ensured a hearty welcome. The mayor, Gordo Pramsbuilt, was just stepping out of his house with his mayoral chain hanging crooked and his clothes in disarray, when Uldini floated upwards into the air to the amazement of the onlookers, and thundered in a resonant voice, "I am Uldini Gitobo, chief of the ancients and beloved of the gods. With whom do I speak regarding accommodation?" The crowd immediately parted in front of the unhappy mayor, who wanted nothing more than to retreat within the safety of his own four walls. Uldini floated over to the trembling man and began speaking to him in lofty tones, but Ahren heard very little before he was pulled around and found himself in a violent embrace which caused him to gasp for breath. It was Holken, one of his friends from youth, now dressed in the colours of a fully-fledged bailiff, who was squeezing him tightly and smiling broadly. "Wow, Ahren, it's great to see you again. We were really worried about you ever since you disappeared the night of the Fogcats attack," he called out heartily. Ahren was about to answer when he felt a hand come down on his shoulder, and he was spun exuberantly around. A heartbeat later, and the apprentice was in the considerably weaker but just as friendly embrace of Lycus, his loyal best friend in his childhood days. "Ahren!" screamed the slender merchant euphorically into his ear. "Where have you been hiding? Is that your sword? Did you bring the dwarf with you? Are you a forest guardian now? Did you see any dragons?" His friend's questions were raining in on top of him, and, laughing, Ahren raised his hands protectively. "Slow down," he gasped, tears of affection and joy rolling down his cheeks. "Why don't we look for a cozy, warm place, and I'll tell you everything." Hungry. The word bored violently into Ahren's dreams and destroyed the wonderful image of a comforting clearing in the wood, which his subconscious had just created. Hungry. The word sounded again in Ahren's head. He opened his eyes with a groan and stared accusingly into Cullen's loyal eyes, a slobbery, stinking, welcoming lick of the wolf's tongue, and Ahren was wide awake. "Hungry," resonated through Ahren again, as Cullen gave vent to his seemingly endless desire for food. The apprentice rolled his eyes in annoyance and got up quickly so as to avoid another lick from the wolf. He questioned, and not for the first time, the benefit of the miracle that connected his mind to Cullen's. The wolf was now his companion animal, chosen by her who feels, created to help Ahren in his dangerous war against him who forces. But all he had heard from the animal up until this point had been insistent demands for more food, more cuddles, and then still more food. If the dark god wasn't ready to be cuddled to death, or wasn't in a food bowl waiting to be gulped down, then Cullen wouldn't be much use. The wolf gave a short howl before sitting back on his hind legs and staring at Ahren with an offended look. "Unfair," the thought sounded in the fresh-faced paladin's mind. The apprentice sighed bitterly while he rubbed his head.